Today I take British Airways' newest addition to their fleet, the Airbus A350-1000, back to London Heathrow from Las Vegas. I had incredibly high hopes for today's flight. I love the A380 with BA, but the cabins are pretty tired, so I was pretty excited to step on a 350 on my return home. Before stepping on board though, I just want to set the scene. My partners Monzo gave us $20 access to a lounge in the terminal at Las Vegas, where I took a lovely shower, put some fresh clothes on, had some very acceptable food and even a couple of glasses of wine. I felt $1 million leaving here, almost as if I'd had a quick shower at home and I was just about to head to bed. And with a departure time of 10 PM, this couldn't have felt any better. Now there was a slight issue, our flight was full. And we didn't bother booking seats together. We'd hoped for a cheap upgrade to the new Club World suites, or maybe even premium economy at least, but it just wasn't to be. Never mind, we were going to be catching up on a little bit of sleep anyway. Aircraft today was Golf X-Ray Bravo Mike, a just 3-year-old A350, operating flight BA274. Flight time today, 9 hours. Now unfortunately, boarding was utter chaos, with plenty of people pushing and shoving to of course all get to the same place. Once on board, I made my way past the Club World suites and down the aisle, which felt thinner to most 737s to be perfectly honest. Looking at the seats, I knew several other airlines use the same ones on board, but I think BA's design isn't horrendous, so my hopes were still relatively high for tonight's flight. My seat, 54 Delta, was at the rear of the aircraft, and I pretty soon realised how good I actually had it on my outbound flight with the extra legroom on the A380. This seat wasn't particularly very comfortable at all. One benefit of the A350's cabin though is the IFE. It felt incredibly modern and it certainly had more content available than that on the A380. Gone is that awkward remote with a frayed cable, and as is the huge IFE box under the seat in front of you. Bravo BA. So other than the cramped seat and a very slimline aisle, all felt pretty good so far.
British Airways A350 service to Heathrow tonight. Join me on the flight deck, Senior First Officer Phil Briscoe and Senior First Officer Katie Fraser and a fabulous team of cabin crew. 12 of those on board tonight, and they're led by in-flight manager Brendan Charles. Well, thank you for all boarding so promptly. Apologies for the slight delay in the service. That was just due to a late about the aircraft, but the ground team here have done an excellent job of turning the aircraft around. We're all ready to go now. So my colleague is just speaking to air traffic control. We'll push you back very shortly. During the short taxi out to the runway here at Vegas, Brendan, the cabin team, will show you the safety features of the aircraft, so please give that briefing due care and attention. One quick note about the seatbelts as well. We're switching them off when it's safe to do so, but should they come on for any reason during the flight, please do return to your seat and fasten your seatbelts securely. The flight time to London tonight is nice and speedy, 9 hours, and weather when we get back to London should be temperatures in the mid-70s, but possibly a few bit of rain as we head towards Saturday. Time difference, 8 hours ahead of the UK, from here, so it's just after 6:15 in the morning. If you want to set your watches now, we should be arriving pretty much on time for that quick flight. That's all from us here in the flight now. We'll speak to you about 40 minutes out from London with the latest arrival time and the weather we're doing during the flight.
Pretty soon we began our taxi to the runway with just a short delay, which jetted off at around 10:30 PM. I knew how heavy the aircraft would be with a full passenger load and the soaring temperatures at Las Vegas, but it seemed no match for the Rolls-Royce engines and of course the runway length at Las Vegas. Now luckily my partner bagged a window seat in a more forward cabin, so she was able to take this video of takeoff. I was gutted, just check out the wing on the A350. And so, as we climbed further away from Las Vegas, I did decide to purchase Wi-Fi on today's flight. It was £19.99. It actually worked great, and throughout the full flight I was able to chat with friends on the ground in the UK as they woke up and even watch some YouTube videos. In contrast, the 380 service on the way out didn't have any Wi-Fi, and last year's trip to Miami on the 380 did, but it maybe worked about 15% of the time. During my game of Angry Birds, BA's salted pretzel service came round. Complimentary alcohol and soft drinks were available, but none for me today, sadly. The restrooms on board were pretty standard. The crew did their best, but there was a few times in the flight where they were not the cleanest. The meal service on this flight was easily the worst I've ever had. The non-vegetarian option was butter chicken, which turned out to be really spicy. This led to a lot of passengers around me actually just leaving it. A spicy curry being the main meal option feels wrong. When butter chicken is typically not a spicy dish, it seemed totally backwards. By far the worst thing though was the temperature of this cabin. I can genuinely say it felt like the core of the sun on board. It makes me laugh that blankets have been handed out along with hot and spicy food when the cabin heats up to something more extreme than the Vegas sunshine. What is the reasoning for this, British Airways? Unfortunately, before I had a chance to get any decent sleep, the passenger in front of me reclined his seat. The low slung tray table and the huge amount of recline really gave me absolutely zero legroom. It was so bad in fact, I had to strain to even leave my seat. The IFE was about 1.5 iPhone 15 pluses away from my face, and to make matters worse, if I tried to sleep leaning on the seat in front of me, the screen would come to life, and trust me, there's no dark mode on the IFE. It really was horrendous, and checking the route map and seeing the 350 hadn't even started the Atlantic yet, it really gave me a sense of doom. What was I going to do for these many hours? Well, in the end, I managed to get some sleep. I'm not entirely sure how, but when I woke up, the cabin lights had been switched on with around 2 hours of the flight left. The cabin was still, of course, incredibly warm, and what made me laugh is, whenever I popped down to the restroom, the cabin crew area seemed to be perfectly chilled. Anyway, a warm, full breakfast was served along with a muffin and some fruit and the choice of tea, coffee or juice. It was okay, it was certainly a lot better than the last night's dinner. Then again, I wasn't entirely convinced the sausage was cooked. I never got sick though, so I presume it was. Then just like that, it was time to begin our descent. Weirdly, the IFE doesn't seem to have access to the aircraft's camera system, so no outside views for myself. I've read online that most A350s have this, but BA just haven't integrated it for use with their IFE. So as you can tell, I was pretty miserable by this stage. The heat, the pretty poor meal service, and the horrendous amount of recline available, which makes your experience pretty poor for this long of a flight. Pair that with the low slung tray table, and anything more than 9 hours in this cabin would have really been pushing it. The good points of course were the cabin crew, the new IFE, and the fact for an avgeek that this is still an A350, but for your average consumer I really doubt anyone would enjoy this flight at all. Perhaps next time I'll keep an eye out for a good deal on better economy seat options. Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you flown on the A350 or perhaps the 787 with British Airways? And if you haven't already, feel free to check out our flight review on the A380 or the American Airlines A321, which was all part of this trip. I hope that you enjoyed this flight review, and if you do like these type of videos, please consider subscribing. It really does help out and I can continue to capture my experiences in the future. We hope to see you in the next one.